The massive doors of the council chamber opened with a sound like thunder. Elena Vasquez walked into the enormous room, her footsteps echoing in the silence. Above her, the ceiling stretched so high she could barely see it. Around her, 12 different alien species sat on floating platforms, each one looking down at the single human woman. Elena wore a simple blue uniform with Earth's flag on her shoulder. She looked small and fragile compared to the creatures watching her. The Zephyrians glowed like living crystals, their bodies catching light and throwing rainbow patterns on the walls. The Krillians buzzed and clicked, thousands of insect-like beings moving as one mind. The Vorthok were pure energy, crackling and shifting like contained lightning. "Human," spoke Supreme Counselor HFY. He had 4 arms and skin like gray stone. His voice was deep and cold. "You stand before the Galactic Council. We have ruled this galaxy for 10 million years. We decide which species live and which species die." Elena said nothing. She just stood in the center of the room and waited. "Your species discovered faster than light travel 50 years ago," HFY continued. "Since then, you have spread to 47 worlds. You build weapons. You fight wars. You are dangerous and unpredictable." The Krillian hive mind spoke next. Their voice was like 1,000 insects talking at once. "Humans are violent. They destroy their own planet. They cannot be trusted." End quote. The Esasperically, with hive mind. They prison it. "We have studied your history," added Zixth of the hegemony. Her snake-like body coiled around her platform. "Your species has been at war for most of its existence. You have weapons that can destroy entire worlds." Elena finally spoke. "Many species have weapons. Many species fight wars. Why are we different? Lock pass. Ascend. Ascend. The energy being called Vorthak Prime flickered brighter. "Because you are young and reckless. Old species learn wisdom. Young species make mistakes that kill everyone. We have seen it before," said the crystal voice of the Zephyrian elder. "Young species always think they know better. They always believe they are special. They are not." HFY raised one of his 4 hands. The room fell silent. "The Council has decided. Humanity has 2 choices. You will surrender all your weapons and technology to us. You will become a servant species. Your worlds will be governed by council members. You will work for us and obey our rules." "What is the second choice?" Elena asked. "Extinction," HFY said simply. "We will destroy every human world, every ship, every station. Your species will become a memory." Elena looked around the room. She saw beings that had lived for thousands of years. She saw technologies beyond human understanding. She saw the power to destroy entire star systems. But she did not look afraid. "How long do we have to decide?" she asked. 30 standard days, HFY replied. "At the end of that time, you will give us your answer. If you choose to serve, you will surrender immediately. If you choose to fight, we will begin the extermination." The Altarian Trade Federation representative spoke up. He looked like a tall, thin human with blue skin. "Supreme Counselor, the humans have been good trading partners. Perhaps we could find another solution." "There is no other solution," HFY said firmly. "Young species must be controlled or destroyed. There is no middle ground." Elena nodded slowly. "I understand your position. You believe you are protecting the galaxy from a dangerous species. You have the power to enforce your will. You have made your choice." "And what is humanity's choice?" asked the Vorthok Prime. Elena smiled. It was not a happy smile or a sad smile. It was something else entirely. Several council members shifted uncomfortably on their platforms. There was something in that smile they did not understand. "Humanity will respond appropriately," Elena said. "We understand what you are offering us. Slavery or death. We understand the power you have. We understand that you have made up your minds. Then you accept one of our terms? HFY demanded. We accept that this is your galaxy, Elena replied. We accept that you have ruled here for millions of years. We accept that you see us as a threat to be controlled or eliminated. The council members looked at each other. This was not the response they had expected. Most young species either begged for mercy or made angry threats. This human was saying something different. You will have our answer in 30 days, Elena continued. But I want you to know something. Humans are not like other species. We do not think like you do. We do not solve problems like you do. We are different in ways you do not understand. All young species think they are different, the Zephyrian elder said with a sound like breaking glass. All young species think they are special. You are not. Elena's smile grew wider. You're right. We are not special. We are just human. But being human means something specific. You will learn what it means in 30 days. She turned and walked toward the massive doors. Thank you for making your position clear, she called back. It makes our decision much easier. The doors closed behind her with another sound like thunder. The council chamber fell silent, except for the buzzing of the Krillians and the crackling of the Vorthak. What did she mean? Asked one of the younger council members. HFY stared at the closed doors. It does not matter. In 30 days, humanity will be our servants or our victims. Either way, the threat will be ended. But deep in his ancient mind, something bothered him. That smile. That strange, knowing smile. It was not the expression of a defeated species. It was something else entirely. Something that made him very uncomfortable. 29 days had passed since the ultimatum. The Council's monitoring stations tracked every human world, every ship, every communication signal. They waited for humanity's response. They expected begging messages or angry threats. They expected desperate attempts to build more weapons or form alliances with other species. Instead, they got silence. Report, ordered Supreme Counselor HFY. Intelligence Director Zixeth slithered closer to the main display. Her forked tongue tasted the air nervously. The humans have gone quiet. Supreme Counselor. Very quiet. Very quiet. What do you mean by quiet? All communication between human worlds stopped 12 hours ago. No messages, no data transmissions, no ship-to-ship communications. Nothing. HFY frowned. His forearms moved in agitation. We have, Supreme Counselor. We are monitoring every human world with our best sensors. But something strange is happening. Quote, the main display showed a map of human space. 47 worlds glowed with soft blue light. As they watched, one of the lights began to flicker. What is wrong with the display? HFY demanded. Nothing is wrong with the display, Zixth replied quietly. The signal from Kepler 442b just stopped. They watched as the light representing the human colony went out completely. The world still showed on their star charts, but there were no energy signatures, no life signs, no technology readings. Send a probe, HFY ordered. Already done, Supreme Counselor. The probe arrived 2 hours ago. The display changed to show images from the probe. They could see the human colony world clearly. Cities were intact. Buildings stood undamaged. Vehicles sat parked in streets, but there were no humans anywhere. Where are they? HFY asked. Unknown, Supreme Counselor. The probe detected no bodies, no signs of struggle, no evidence of mass evacuation. The humans are simply gone. As they spoke, another light on the map flickered and died. Then, another. And another. The Krillian hive mind buzzed with concern. This is not normal behavior. Species do not just disappear. Perhaps they are evacuating to make a final stand somewhere, suggested the Vorthok Prime. gathering their forces for a last battle. But Zeeks was already shaking her head. Our sensors would detect large ship movements. We would see fleets gathering. There are no ships, no fleets, no energy signatures indicating mass transportation. They are not evacuating. They are just vanishing. Over the next 6 hours, they watched 20 more human worlds go dark. Each time, the pattern was the same. All communication stopped. Then all technological signatures disappeared. Then the probes found empty but intact settlements. "Show me Earth," HFY commanded. The display focused on humanity's homeworld. The blue and green planet looked normal from space. Cities glowed with lights. Satellites orbited overhead. Space stations hung in the distance. "Earth is still active," Zeeks reported. "Full population, normal energy output, regular communications." Wait. As they watched, Earth's communication signals began to fade. The lights in the cities grew dimmer. The space stations went silent, one by one. "Send every probe we have to Earth," HFY ordered. "I want to know what is happening." The probes arrived at Earth 8 hours later. They found something that would haunt the Council for years to come. Earth was perfect. The oceans were clean and blue. The forests were green and healthy. The cities were intact and undamaged. But there was not a single human anywhere on the planet. 7 billion people had simply vanished. "Check the ships," HFY demanded. "Check the space stations. Check every human vessel in the galaxy." The reports came back the same. Human ships hung empty in space, their lights still blinking, their computers still running, but their crews were gone. Space stations orbited planets with all systems functioning but no one aboard. Mining operations continued automatically, with no workers to be found. "This is impossible," muttered the Zephyrian elder. Her crystal voice rang with confusion. "Entire species do not just disappear. There must be an explanation." But there was no explanation. The Council sent investigators, scientists, and intelligence agents to dozens of human worlds. They found the same thing everywhere. Empty cities, functioning technology, no people. It was as if humanity had simply decided to stop existing. "Maybe they killed themselves," suggested one of the younger council members. "Maybe they chose death over slavery." "Where are the bodies?" Zeeks asked. 7 billion people do not disappear without leaving bodies. And why would they leave all their technology running? The Altarian Trade Federation was panicking. They had been humanity's closest allies. But even they had no idea where the humans had gone. "We had trading agreements," their representative pleaded. "They were supposed to deliver 40 million tons of rare minerals next week. They just vanished in the middle of negotiations." As the 30th day arrived, the council gathered in their chamber. They stared at a map that now showed no human activity anywhere in the galaxy. 47 worlds, hundreds of ships, thousands of space installations, all empty. "What is humanity's answer to our ultimatum?" HFY asked the empty air. There was no answer, because there was no one left to give it. "Perhaps this is their answer," the Vorthak Prime suggested. "Perhaps they chose to leave rather than submit or fight." "Leave for where?" Zeeks demanded. "Our sensors cover the entire galaxy. Where could 7 billion people go that we cannot detect them?" But nobody had an answer. The humans had simply vanished, as if they had never existed at all. They left behind only empty worlds, and a mystery that would disturb the Council's sleep for years to come. "We won," said one of the Council members uncertainly. "Did we?" HFY stared at the display showing empty human worlds. They were supposed to choose slavery or death. They chose neither. They chose something we did not offer them, something we do not understand. The council chamber fell silent except for the buzzing of the Krillians. Outside, the galaxy continued to turn, but something had changed. something important. A species had vanished without a sound, and somehow, that silence felt more threatening than any war cry ever could. 6 months after humanity vanished, the first problems began. The Krillian hive mind noticed it first. Their quantum processors, the technology that let millions of individual Krillians think as one, started making errors. Small ones at first. A calculation wrong here. A communication delayed there. Nothing serious. Nothing that couldn't be fixed. But the errors kept growing. "The quantum cores are failing," reported drone engineer Zixtal to the hive mind central. "I have checked and rechecked. The hardware is perfect. The software is exactly as it should be, but the processors are not working correctly." The hive mind examined the problem with thousands of expert minds. They had been using quantum processors for over 1,000,000 years. The technology was old and reliable. It should not be failing. "Run a deep analysis on processor core 447 alpha, commanded the central voice. "Find the source of these errors." The analysis took 3 days. When it finished, the results confused everyone. The processor was working exactly as it had been designed to work. Every circuit was perfect. Every connection was correct. But somehow, the quantum calculations were wrong. "The math has changed," Zixtal reported, confusion clear in his voice. "The equations we use for quantum processing are giving different results than they did last month." "Mathematics does not change," replied the central voice. "Check your data again." But the data was correct. The quantum equations that had worked perfectly for centuries were now producing errors. Not big errors, but enough to disrupt the careful balance needed for the hive mind to function. As the days passed, more quantum cores failed. The hive mind began to fragment. Individual Krillians found themselves thinking alone for the first time in millions of years. The experience was terrifying. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, the Altarian Trade Federation faced their own crisis. Merchant Prince Veltar stared at the financial reports in disbelief. "This cannot be right," he said to his advisors. "We have been using these trading algorithms for decades. They have never failed." The algorithms in question were mathematical formulas that predicted market trends across the galaxy. They told the Altarians which goods to buy, which routes to use, and when to make their trades. For 50 years, these formulas had made the Federation incredibly wealthy. Now they were completely wrong. "The Centauri grain markets collapsed yesterday," reported Chief Economist Darwin. "Our algorithms said grain prices would rise. Instead, they fell by 80%. We lost 2 billion credits." "What about the crystal trade route?" Veltar asked. "Also wrong. Our calculations said crystalline minerals from Vega would be in high demand. Instead, the market is flooded. No one wants to buy. I am one." Veltar studied the reports. Every single prediction was backwards. Every calculation was incorrect. It was as if the galaxy's economy had suddenly started following completely different rules. "Where did we get these algorithms?" he asked. Darwin checked his files. "We purchased them from..." Oh no. "What?" "We bought them from human mathematicians 15 years ago. A company called Universal Trading Solutions." Veltar's face went pale. The humans had sold them the mathematical formulas that made their economy work. Now the humans were gone, and the formulas were failing. But the worst crisis was happening in Vorthak space. The Vorthak were beings of pure energy. They lived by manipulating electrical fields and quantum forces. For millions of years, they had mastered these powers using techniques passed down from generation to generation. Recently, however, they had improved their abilities using theories about quantum mechanics they had learned from human scientists. The improvements had been dramatic. Vorthak energy manipulation had become more powerful and more precise than ever before. Now those improvements were killing them. "Core World Sigma-7 is experiencing cascade failures," reported Vorthak subprime Nexus. His energy form flickered with distress. "The quantum resonance techniques are becoming unstable. becoming unstable. How unstable? Asked Vorthak Prime. The entire planet may need to be evacuated. Vorthak Prime focused his attention on the distant world. He could sense the chaos from thousands of light years away. The energy patterns that held Vorthak civilization together were breaking down. The advanced techniques they had learned from humans were turning against them. What is causing this? Unknown, Prime. The human theories about quantum mechanics seemed correct. We tested them carefully before implementing them. But now the quantum fields are behaving in ways that make no sense. As they spoke, another report arrived. Core World Gamma 3 was experiencing similar problems. Then Delta 9. Then Alpha Prime. Evacuate all affected worlds, Vorthak Prime commanded. Return to the old techniques immediately. But Prime, the old techniques are less efficient. Our civilization has grown to depend on the new methods. Then our civilization will have to shrink. All across the galaxy, similar problems began to surface. The Nixari Empire discovered that their terraforming projects were failing. Planets they had successfully transformed for colonization were now rejecting their environmental modifications. The hegemony found that their deep space sensors were giving false readings. The Zephyrian crystal cities began producing discordant harmonics that hurt their crystalline minds. In every case, the failing technology had one thing in common. It had been improved or influenced by human knowledge. Intelligence Director Zix compiled reports from across the galaxy. When she finished, she requested an emergency session with the Council. The pattern is clear, she reported to the assembled representatives. Every major technological failure in the past 6 months can be traced to human influence. Trade algorithms purchased from humans. Quantum theories shared by human scientists. Engineering techniques learned from human researchers. Are you saying the humans sabotaged us? Asked Thexhai. I am saying that human knowledge is failing us. Technologies that worked perfectly for decades are now causing catastrophic problems. But I cannot explain why. I guess the Tast Road. The Krillian hive mind buzzed with agitation. Human theories were tested. They were proven correct. They worked for years without problems. And now they don't work, Zixth replied simply. The question is why? Perhaps, suggested the Vorthak Prime carefully. The humans knew their disappearance would cause these failures. Perhaps this is their revenge. The chamber fell silent. The idea was disturbing because it suggested something impossible. It would mean the humans had planned their own vanishing. It would mean they had somehow predicted the Council's ultimatum and prepared for it years in advance. Humans are not that intelligent, declared the Zephyrian elder. They are a young species. They do not think in long-term plans. But privately, many council members were beginning to wonder if they had underestimated humanity. The technological failures were too precise, too targeted to be coincidence. It was as if the humans had planted time bombs in every piece of knowledge they had shared. Time bombs that only went off after humanity itself was gone. What do we do? Asked one of the younger council members. Thexhai stared at the reports. Civilizations were struggling with failing technology. All because they had trusted human knowledge. All because they had accepted human improvements to their ancient ways. We adapt, he said finally. We return to the old ways. We abandon anything that came from human sources. That will set us back centuries, protested the Altarian representative. Then we will be set back centuries, Thexhai replied grimly. It is better than the alternative. But even as he spoke, he wondered what other surprises the vanished humans had left behind. What other prices would the galaxy have to pay for their arrogance? 5 years had passed since humanity disappeared, and the galaxy was falling apart. What had started as isolated technological failures had grown into a crisis that threatened every major civilization. The council met in emergency session after emergency session, but each meeting brought worse news. The Zephyrian crystal cities are singing. reported Intelligence Director Zixth. Her snake-like body coiled with stress. The harmonic frequencies are driving the population to madness. Supreme Counselor Thexhai stared at the reports with his 4 eyes. 15 years ago, the Zephyrians upgraded their crystal matrices, using human theories about harmonic resonance. The improvements made their cities more beautiful and more efficient. Now those same improvements are creating frequencies that Zephyrian minds cannot tolerate. On the main display, they could see images from the great Zephyrian capital of Crystalline Prime. The city had once been the most beautiful sight in the galaxy, with towers of living crystal that sang in perfect harmony. Now the towers screamed. The sounds coming from the crystal structures were harsh and discordant. Zephyrians fled their homes, their crystalline bodies cracking under the stress of the terrible noise. The city that had stood for 3 million years was becoming uninhabitable. Can they fix it? Asked Thexhai. They are trying. But the harmonic patterns are built into the very structure of their cities. To remove the human modifications, they would have to rebuild everything from scratch. What about the Nexari Empire? Zixth brought up new reports. Worse. Their terraforming projects have all failed. 23 worlds are now rejecting colonization. Aparter, the images showed planets that had once been paradise worlds for the Nexari. Green fields, clear water, perfect temperatures. The Nexari had been masters of terraforming for millions of years, but they had improved their techniques using human ecological theories. Now those theories were backfiring in ways no one had expected. Plants were dying for no apparent reason. Animals were fleeing the colonies. The very soil was becoming hostile to Nexari life. It is as if the planets themselves developed an immune system, reported Nexari Ambassador Torval. His usually proud bearing was bent with defeat. Our colonies are being rejected like foreign bodies in a living organism. But planets are not alive, protested the Vorthak Prime. No, agreed Torval. But the human ecological theories treated them as if they were. And now they are behaving as if they actually are alive. Crowned. The crisis was spreading faster than anyone had expected. The hegemony's star mapping projects had collapsed when their navigation computers began giving false readings. Ships were getting lost in space. Trade routes that had been used for centuries were no longer reliable. The Altarian Trade Federation had declared bankruptcy 3 times in 2 years. Their economy, built on human-designed algorithms, could no longer function in a galaxy where those algorithms no longer worked. Even the Council itself was affected. The Great Chamber where they met had been upgraded decades ago with human holographic technology. Now the holograms flickered and distorted, sometimes showing strange images that made no sense. During one particularly disturbing meeting, the holographic display showed what appeared to be a human face smiling at them. The image lasted only a few seconds before disappearing, but it left the council members deeply unsettled. "Are we under attack?" asked one of the younger members. "By whom?" Zixth replied. "The humans are gone. There is no evidence of any remaining human technology or presence anywhere in the galaxy." But that was not entirely true, and they all knew it. Human influence was everywhere. Every major civilization had incorporated human knowledge into their technology over the past century. Trade, science, engineering, medicine, communications. Humans had touched it all. And now it was all failing. "I have a theory," announced Dr. Evental, the galaxy's leading expert on alien technology. She was one of the few scientists who had studied human innovations carefully. "Tell us," ordered Thexhai. "I believe the humans planned this. Not just the failures we are seeing now, but their own disappearance as well. They knew we would eventually see them as a threat. They knew we would give them an ultimatum. So they prepared. Prepared how? They embedded quantum triggers in every piece of knowledge they shared with us. Tiny modifications to mathematical equations, subtle changes to physical theories, minor adjustments to engineering principles. These changes were so small we never noticed them. Dr. Yvental brought up a complex diagram on the main display. But these quantum triggers are designed to activate when certain conditions are met. I believe the condition was the disappearance of humanity itself. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. You are saying they poisoned their own knowledge? Asked the Krillian hive mind. Exactly. Every gift they gave us, every scientific paper they published, every trade deal they made, it all contained hidden quantum instructions that would activate if humanity was removed from the galaxy. But that would require incredible foresight, protested the Vorthak Prime. They would have had to plan this decades in advance. Yes, Dr. Vivental agreed. Which means humanity was much more intelligent and much more dangerous than we realized. Thexhai stood up, his forearms trembling with rage and fear. Show me the full extent of the damage. The main display changed to show a galactic map. Red zones marked areas where human-influenced technology had failed. The red covered nearly half the galaxy. The Krillian hive mind is fragmenting, Zeeks reported. Billions of individual Krillians are losing their connection to the collective consciousness. Their entire civilization is breaking down into chaos. The Vorthak have lost 8 core worlds to energy cascade failures. They are reverting to their primitive ancestor forms just to survive. The Nexari Empire has shrunk to less than 1/3 of its original size. They can no longer maintain their vast territories. The Altarian Trade Federation has collapsed completely. Their former merchant princes are begging for food aid. And us? Thexhai asked quietly. Zeeks hesitated. Our sensor networks are failing. Our communication systems are unreliable. Our weapons are showing signs of instability. Ennis, though, the council that had ruled the galaxy for 10 million years was falling apart. Their technology was failing. Their allies were collapsing. And their power was crumbling. All because they had underestimated a species they thought was primitive and young. How long before complete collapse? Thexhai asked. Dr. Yvental studied her data carefully. At the current rate of failure, perhaps 20 years, maybe less. And there is no way to stop it? We would have to remove every trace of human influence from our technology. Every equation, every theory, every innovation they ever shared with us. It would set us back thousands of years. Thexhai looked around the chamber at the representatives of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. They all looked tired, defeated, and afraid. Then we will set ourselves back thousands of years, he said finally. It is better than extinction. But privately, he wondered if they had already lost. The humans had given them a choice, just as the Council had given humanity a choice. Submit to technological regression, or face complete collapse. The humans had chosen a third option, leaving the galaxy entirely. But they had made sure the Council would pay the price for their arrogance. And the price was everything they had built over millions of years. 20 years after humanity vanished, the Galactic Council met in a room lit by fire. The great chamber with its floating platforms and holographic displays was gone. The technology had failed completely, along with most of the advanced systems that had once made the Council the masters of the galaxy. Now, they sat on simple stone benches around a basic metal table, like primitive beings planning a hunt. Supreme Counselor Thexhai was old now. His forearms moved slowly, and his gray skin had turned almost white. Around the table sat the broken remnants of the galaxy's once great civilizations. The Krillian representative was a single insect being named Kixtal. The great hive mind had shattered completely, leaving billions of Krillians to live as individuals for the first time in their species' history. Most had gone insane from the loneliness. The Zephyrian delegate was cracked and dim. The harmonic frequencies that had destroyed their cities had also damaged their crystalline bodies. They could no longer sing in the beautiful harmonies that had once been their greatest art. The Vorthak ambassador was barely more than a flickering light. The energy cascades that had destroyed their core worlds had weakened their entire species. They could no longer maintain their powerful energy forms. Report on galactic status, HFY said, wearily. Intelligence Director Zix, now ancient and scarred, consulted a simple paper document. Advanced data systems were no longer reliable. Galactic civilization has collapsed by approximately 90%. Most species have reverted to pre-spaceflight technology levels. Interstellar trade has almost completely stopped. 1. What about our military forces? Gone. Our weapons systems failed 8 years ago. Most of our ships can no longer travel between stars. We are effectively trapped in our home systems. The room fell silent except for the crackling of the fires that provided light and heat. Outside, the galaxy continued to turn, but it was a different galaxy now. Where once there had been vast interstellar empires, now there were only scattered primitive colonies struggling to survive. How many people have died? Asked Kixtal, her individual voice strange and lonely without the support of the hive mind. Billions. Zix replied quietly. When the technology failed, many worlds could not support their populations. The Vorthak energy cascades alone killed over 2 billion beings. The collapse of the trade networks caused famines that killed billions more. And we still do not know where the humans went, added the Zephyrian delegate, her voice like broken glass. We know they left the galaxy. Zix said. Our last working deep space sensors detected massive gravitational disturbances at the galactic rim 20 years ago. Something very large was moving faster than light, heading toward the void between galaxies. How large? Big enough to carry several billion people and all their technology. HFY stared into the fire. They built escape ships. Massive ones. They planned their exodus for decades, while smiling and trading with us. But where did they go? Asked the Vorthak ambassador. Before anyone could answer, alarms began ringing throughout the building. Simple mechanical alarms. Because electronic ones no longer worked reliably. What is it? HFY demanded. A guard ran into the chamber. He was breathing hard because they no longer had communication systems that worked over long distances. Supreme Counselor, a ship. There is a ship approaching. What kind of ship? From which species? Unknown, sir. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. And it just appeared out of nowhere. HFY and the other council members rushed outside. Above them, hanging in the sky like a small moon, was a vessel of impossible beauty and obvious power. It was sleek and white, with flowing curves that seemed to bend space around them. Energy patterns danced across its surface in ways that hurt to look at directly. The ship was completely silent, but they could all feel its presence. It radiated technology so advanced that it made their finest pre-human achievements look like stone tools. It's scanning us, whispered Dr. Yvental, who had survived the collapse but aged greatly in the process. I can feel it examining every atom of this world. A beam of light descended from the ship. When it faded, a single figure stood in the courtyard before them. It was Elena Vasquez. She looked exactly as she had 20 years ago when she had walked out of their chamber with that strange smile. Her hair was still brown, her face unlined, her blue uniform still crisp and clean. Good afternoon, Council, she said politely. I apologize for the dramatic entrance. We wanted to make sure you noticed us. And, HFY could barely speak. You. Elena smiled the same smile that had unsettled them so long ago. We're not extinct. We just left your galaxy. We found a better neighborhood. Where? Demanded Zix. Andromeda is quite nice this time of year. The locals there are much more welcoming to new species. They judge people by their actions, not their age. But that's impossible, protested Dr. Yvental. Andromeda is 2.5 million light-years away. Yes, Elena agreed. It took us about 15 years to get there. Would have been faster, but we stopped to explore a few interesting galaxies along the way. She looked around at the primitive buildings, the fires burning in metal barrels, the desperate faces of beings who had once ruled the stars. You wanted to know our answer to your ultimatum? She continued. Slavery or death, you said. We chose option 3, evolution. We left your galaxy to build something better. But we left you a gift. A gift? Kixtal's voice was bitter. You destroyed our civilization. Kixtal's. You destroyed. We gave you exactly what you deserved, Elena replied calmly. You ruled through fear and oppression. You decided that young species had to be controlled or destroyed. So we showed you what it feels like to lose everything you never earned. We earned our place. HFY protested, but his voice was weak. Did you? Or did you just inherit it from species that came before you, and then use that inherited power to oppress others? Elena gestured at the ruins around them. Every innovation you lost was something you took from us without asking. Every failed system was something you stole and then couldn't maintain on your own. You built your empire on the backs of others, and when we removed our support, it all collapsed. You could have just said no, whispered the Vorthak ambassador. You could have refused to share your knowledge. We could have, Elena agreed. But that wouldn't have taught you anything. You would have just found other young species to exploit. This way, you learned what happens when you threaten people who are smarter than you think they are. Los. When you threaten people. When you threaten people. She turned to look directly at HFY. You asked us to choose between slavery and death. We chose to leave. But we made sure you would remember us. Ender, 43. We would not find 43. And when you know, we will be. Ender. Ender 5. Ender 5. Will be. Ender 5. Ender 5. Will you ever come back? HFY asked quietly. Elena's expression softened slightly. That depends on you. We'll be watching from outside your galaxy. When we see a civilization that has learned to treat others with respect instead of fear, when we see species working together as equals instead of masters and slaves, then we might return. How long will that take? However long it takes you to become worthy of sharing the galaxy with us. Elena stepped back into the beam of light. As she began to fade, she spoke one final time. You wanted to rule through strength. We taught you that real strength comes from building others up, not tearing them down. When you learn that lesson, we'll be friends. Until then, good luck. The beam of light disappeared. The ship hung in the sky for a moment longer, then simply wasn't there anymore. The council members stood in the courtyard, staring at the empty sky. Around them, the ruins of their civilization stretched to the horizon. In the distance, smoke rose from primitive fires as beings who had once commanded starfleets struggled to grow food and build shelters. What do we do now? Asked Kixtal. HFY was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. We learn. Learn what? How to build instead of control. How to help instead of dominate. How to earn what we have instead of taking it. He looked around at his fellow council members. It will take centuries, maybe millennia, but we will rebuild this galaxy into something worthy of humanity's return. And if they never come back? HFY smiled sadly. Then at least we will have become something better than what we were. Above them, the stars shone down on a galaxy that was learning, for the first time in millions of years, what it meant to start over.